Engineer Dr. Wisdom Patrick Enang is a technocrat and a scholar. Obtained his undergraduate master's and doctoral degrees in mechanical engineering from the prestigious University of Bath, Somerset, a leading institution in engineering in the United Kingdom. He currently serves as the energy consultant and a senior analyst to a number of international energy agencies and companies. Serves as an adjunct professor of energy engineering with the University of North Dakota, United States. Prior to this, Dr. Wisdom Patrick Enang oversaw the operations and maintenance of 24 shallow water of oil and gas assets in Nigeria. He also served as an engineering technical lead responsible for project management and design engineering for more than 20 years in various project execution. Dr. Patrick Enang is a chartered engineer with the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, United Kingdom, a fellow of Nigerian Society of Engineers, a fellow of Nigerian Institute of Safety Engineers, an international fellow of the Occupational Safety and Health Association of United Kingdom, an intellectually and internationally published expert in the field of engineering. His areas of research include carbon capture, energy economics, operations of integrity management, oil and gas formulation, and many others. Awardee of several awards and accolades to his honor credit, a renowned expert known for various presentations at various forums, and today we're privileged to have him as a dinner lecturer on the topic compressed natural gas deployment, economic, social, and environmental perspectives. Considering the fact that CNG is a light of day and a just transition fuel for Nigeria, it is a topic of contemporary concern, and we're privileged to have him highlight some key pertinent issues with regards to the economic, social, and environmental benefits of the CNG deployment. With a loud clap ovation, may we welcome Dr. Wisdom Patrick Enang for today's dinner lecture.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me today. Indeed, very pleased to share my thoughts with lawyers, and this wouldn't be the first time, but I'm always very grateful when that opportunity comes up. So today we'll be talking about the compressed natural gas, economic, social, and environmental perspectives. And what I'm going to do essentially is to run you through the entire story, and eventually you can have my slides or you can contact the organizers and they can eventually get to me. So what's this whole talk about? The energy transition and the need for CNG. Next slide, please. The whole discussion, next slide. The whole discussion about energy transition is about moving to a cleaner fuel. But what's that cleaner fuel? Ultimately, we're talking about moving from where we are, liquid petroleum, down to hydrogen. And then within hydrogen, we have the gray hydrogen, we have the blue hydrogen. The gray hydrogen doesn't have carbon capture and storage. The blue hydrogen does have carbon capture and storage, comes from the conventional petroleum resources. And then the green hydrogen, of course, comes from the bio resources. And so that's the whole aim. So the entire conversation is about what is the bridge fuel, how long is it going to take us to utilize that bridge fuel, and ultimately, how are we going to get there? I'd set the tone for these by saying that CNG is essentially natural gas and essentially almost pure methane. We're talking about 98% methane content and compressed into different vessels, what we call pressure vessels or cylinders. And someone might be forced to ask, what is different between CNG and the LNG? It's just the same thing, but the manner of storage is different. LNG is typically put through a cryogenic storage condition. So at sub-zero temperatures, gas will behave like liquid, and then you can store them. And that's better for storage and movement for long distances. Compressed natural gas is a bit volatile when you start looking at very long distances across different countries, and which is what's the difference. Again, I'm just going through the brief discussion aspect so that you can touch on when you require later. And so, compression, when you get the compressed natural gas, is essentially you know, getting that entire volume less than 1% in total, and that's essentially for storage. So what's the safety profile? When people talk about, next slide please, when people talk about CNG, safety is a very big issue. And I want to help, if there's anything you can take out of here, is to clarify that when it comes to different aspects of the CNG characteristics itself, it's actually very safe. But it is the way we use it and take ownership of getting your petrol to combust almost instantly than you would get natural gas too. And the other thing we want to understand is the auto ignition temperature is much higher to ignite natural gas than it is to ignite diesel, for example. And of course, the flammability range is between 5. So when you talk about flammability, you're talking about the air fuel mixture. You would need between 5 to 15% of natural gas burning in between 95 to 85% air for you to get combustion. If it's too rich, it will not combust. If it's less, it will not combust. So you have a very narrow temperature. So that's why what typically happens is that you would get more of an explosion happen, which is because of an overpressure scenario, than you would get it just combust. And even if it combusts, I tell you what, once you release gas, it tends to go and float above and then begin to get out of the room, which is why they tell you to keep the cylinder outside. It doesn't puddle like PMS, so it's a lot safer. I just wanted to spend some time to talk about that. But when we talk about the benefits, they're quite enormous. They've been used in transportation, as you're aware. In residential and commercial uses, generators use them. And in industrial applications, urea, for example, relies on about 80% feedstock of it comes from natural gas. So from an environmental perspective, it's very clean. From an energy security perspective, it gives us a lot of options that we can have for energy security. From a cost perspective, per liter equivalent of energy is about 230 naira per liter equivalent versus about 1,050 naira for PMS at the moment. In terms of distribution and safety, there is compress them, clean them up, compress them, and then you can distribute to different daughter stations without the need for pipeline infrastructure. Has a lot of flexibility. Now, why is it not being used like it should be used? Refueling station is a big one. The investment and the upfront cost is another one, and the regulatory barriers is a different one. And when we talk about regulatory barriers, I think it's important for people to note that some of our best successes in terms of projects, like the NLNG project, has legislative backing. And so when an investor comes inside, the investor knows that not only are you doing this because the present government of the day is interested in the project, but it actually is something that the country is intending to do for the long term. And so that legislative backing gives that investor a peace of mind. Next slide. Okay, keep it here. So what are the solutions? Very obvious. Expansion of the refueling network is very important, and the government has to drive these. I'll tell you a case study of what different countries have done. We need to create public awareness, because the utilization of the technology itself has to, for it to blossom, we have to take it from just in the companies, from the government to individuals. And for you to achieve that, it means that definitely you must convince people that those technologies are safe. Then subsidies and incentives for the production. And then, of course, you need to have collaboration. And I think it's very important for people to understand that without collaboration, especially when it comes to research and technology, we cannot domesticate those to solve the problems, energy problems in Nigeria. I'll give you context. A lot of people have some arguments and say, they use CNG abroad, but those environments are cold. And so the chances of explosion happening, of course, if you're a science student, you understand the entropy and the temperature. The chances of the entropy getting so high for you to have some sort of explosion is lower. But the thing is, you cannot answer definitely how or what we can do in Nigeria to condition ourselves to better adapt this technology without having the incident that is occasioned by the weather. And for you to achieve this, you need to subject a lot of these technologies to innovation. I solved a lot of innovative problems when I was in university, and a lot of them right from year one were solving real research problems for companies and preferring solutions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take just one example of a company, of a country that was able to adapt to CNG technology. Let's see what they did. There are some commonalities in how they've done it. And I want to just show an example. For example, I'll talk about China. What did they do? And you find that there are commonalities across board. What did China do? China made sure that CNG was cheaper, about 54% in equivalent in price, 54% compared to gasoline, and 68% in price compared to diesel. And of course, they gave allocation of land for CNG refilling stations, some of the incentives. They also mandated the conversion of public cars to CNG, and also made sure that the CNG prices were more favorable. And all the way to creating incentives for people to adapt. For example, adapt now and then pay later for people that were, people that are income earners in the economy. Some of those programs help to deepen. But of course, infrastructure is very key. I put a long list of, next slide please. I put a long list of some of those things that different countries have done and how their trajectory has gone through for people that may want to study. Next slide. But because of the want of time, I'm just going to look at the policy review lessons learned. Next slide. And put a summary perspective to what exactly works and how to summarize all of this story into a few slides. Next slide, please. So what you find, next one. What you typically find, next slide. What you typically find is that if you look at the entire natural gas vehicles policy review lessons learned, you'll find out that there are things that different countries have done. They've done a combination of applying market-based instruments, innovative financial mechanisms, command and control measures. So what does command and control measures simply do is to say, this is the emission limits that you have to meet as a people, or your vehicle taxes will be higher. And then, what does that mean is that you will need an alternative vehicular technology, CNG, electric vehicles, to meet it. That's how different countries have done it. But they've also done market-based instruments, using custom and excise duty, reduced taxation regime, and different tax credits and tax incentives. And they've also used regulatory actions, of course, giving funding support, insurance rebates, and loan, and different forms of leasing as well. So these are things that different countries have done. There's a long list, but then let's get ourselves to acquaint with what would Nigeria do better to be able to make CNG very much available. Increase the availability and access to refueling stations. I think a lot of people that want to convert are saying, where is the refueling stations that we could use? And I think one of the biggest, luck that we had is that this is coming at a nick of time that we have the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program, and I think we need to leverage in that, help those guys roll out all the infrastructure required. Then the next thing is market policies are very important. If you look at some of the attempts of Nigeria to end gas flaring, you see that punitive actions did not work because a lot of those companies would just price that cost of flaring penalties into the cost of doing business, and they'll move on. So we need to look at more market incentives for adoption of CNG, subsidize the vehicular conversion that we're doing, and then implement a national market program for CNG. It's very important. It's not just something that you do as a buzzword or sort of an afterthought policy. You need to implement it, roll it out, legislate it, and let it go. That's how it's going to grow. Assign responsibilities to make sure that, there's an adage that says that a chicken that is owned and fed by the village will soon die of hunger. It is important for us to have someone take ownership, and so we can hold them responsible. We need to develop the transmission lines. Give you a little bit of context. Nigeria has about 6,000 active kilometers of pipelines with about 207 trillion cubic feet of gas. On the other hand, India doesn't really have that much, nothing to show, but they have 79,000 kilometers. And if you look at how much those pipelines correlate with the amount of industrialization for those countries, you find out that pipelines are critical for us to get gas. And if we can consume gas, we can definitely have much more industrialized economy. And then CNG is part of that. Increased awareness of the benefits. We need to leverage on a lot of advocacy groups, professional groups to say, to look at the CNG programs, create the awareness of its safety, and also how it could be utilized properly. Domestic price reform is very important to engender the production of CNG. Partner with automobiles in Nigeria, for example, to make sure that they begin to create automobiles and supply them to government that come in fitted with the CNG, and prioritize the use of CNG for public buses and transit means of transportation. So what is Nigeria doing? Next slide, and the final slide, actually. What Nigeria is doing is they rolled out a PICNG program, and the normal things that they're doing, looking at rolling out some of those CNG initiatives, is still developing. But I think we're hoping that they can release more funding, allow people to adopt the technology, and then pay it off later. The subnationals should also join in to give people, the vast amount of support and resources required to do the conversion. The very final slide. Right, CNG has the potential to transform the energy landscape and play a vital role in sustainable infrastructure development. By leveraging its advantages, CNG can unlock a range of opportunities. So we can reduce carbon emissions and improve air quality, have cost savings like I've just highlighted, and reduction in the maintenance costs of your vehicles, have job creation and economic growth, enhance energy security and independence. Undoubtedly, CNG can drive positive changes in the transportation and power generation sectors. By embracing CNG and investing in necessary infrastructure, we can unlock a world of opportunities and pave the way for a greener future. Thank you very much.